I'd also like to ask, how's my volume? Can you hear me okay? Okay. Louder? All right. All right, how's that? Better? Okay, very good. Welcome everybody to our Eruv celebration. We are beyond excited to be able to share this with the whole community. It's been a pipe dream of many of us for so long, even including 15 years ago when an effort started and then never got off the ground. And this time, a lot of us were skeptical, but it got off the ground, and here we are. It is completed. So exciting. The majority of the credit goes to our Fairfax Eruv Committee board representatives, and so I'd just like to mention them right now for you. That you will hear a little bit more about them as the program goes on, and you'll get to meet them in the end. But so I'd like to first start with Steve Lamar. He's actually out of town, he couldn't be here, but he's the vice president of our committee and has done all kinds of interfacing with different politicians, and he's a director of inspections, and he makes sure that the Eruv gets inspected every week, which is one of the requirements that has to be inspected every week. Then we have Michael Frame, who's our treasurer. And Michael is here. And as you can imagine, being a treasurer of an event, of a project like this that's starting from its inception, it's not just like writing checks. There's a lot of work to be done, including working, doing IRS and state corporate filings and all kinds of stuff. So thank you, Michael, for your tireless efforts. Appreciate that so much. We also have Mandy Book. She's the secretary for Mandy. So Mandy's also director of OU Small Community Committee. She's just done a lot of tireless work to get this out together, and we appreciate her so much. And another board member is Elliot Goldberg. I guess I'm sure, again, that it's safe to say that we would not be here in this room celebrating this event without Elliot Goldberg. So thank you so much. And we'll also get to hear more about what he's done later on in the program. And so, without further ado, I'm going to introduce the last board member, which is Sholom Simon, my husband, Rabbi Sholom Simon, who is currently the president of this board and has also, worked tirelessly for 2 years. I can tell you from personal experience, he has worked hard, as have all the board members. And so we really appreciate all of their efforts. Rabbi Simon is going to be our MC for this afternoon's festivities. So without further ado, I will welcome him up. Please give him a round of applause as he's
Welcome. Wow, this is amazing. So I first need to start off with an OT announcement. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that the OT policy is that everyone wears a mask, unless you're a speaker and nobody's within 6 feet of you, and then you're allowed to take your mask off. So I'm taking my mask off. You guys can't. I guess unless you're eating, right? So anyway, all right. So thank you. This is truly amazing. It's literally a historic day for the Jewish community of Northern Virginia. Even the NFL helped out and moved a particular football game to help us out. There's, as Shauna mentioned before, we've wished we had an Eruv here for 20 years. We actually tried once about 15 years ago. It didn't work. Maryland has half a dozen Eruvs. DC has 2 of them. There's 2 in Virginia, 1 in Richmond and 1 in Norfolk. But this is the first ever Eruv in Northern Virginia. So you'll hear more about it. Okay, so we're just amazingly thrilled. Part of the theme of my remarks and what the program is that both it takes a village and also it makes a village. And you'll see what I mean. So first thing I want to do is mention, it's a very important religious principle for us. It's called Hakaras Hatov, which means to recognize the good. To recognize the good that people have done. And the plain fact of the matter is that over the last 2,000 years, the Jewish communities have not exactly necessarily always had the best relationships with the governments and with the places where they're living. And that makes it even more incumbent upon us when we run into a situation like this to be thankful and appreciative for everybody at all levels of government. The support has been astounding. People warned us we might have some problems. Not here. It's amazing. And I'm talking Fairfax City, Fairfax County, the state of Virginia, and the federal government. Everybody was so helpful. Getting choked up even. It really was amazing. And in our discussions with politicians, every single one of them ended the conversation with, if there's anything I can do to help, please ask. So that makes it incumbent upon us to recognize everybody who has played a large role. So you're going to have to be a little bit patient because, as you will see, a whole lot of people and a whole lot of organizations were involved in making this Eruv come to be. And you'll see just how complicated it must have been to do this. It took us 2 years. It took us 2 years, and we didn't even run into any roadblocks. So anyway, all right, so I should start off by at least describing a little bit so that we're all on the same page. What is an Eruv? As probably almost everybody knows, most religions have a day of rest. We have our day of rest on Saturdays, our Sabbath day. It's called Chabad. And with Shabbat, we rest and we unplug and we sit back and we let God take care of the things that God takes care of. So things like planting or harvesting or starting a fire and those kinds of things we don't do on Shabbos, on Shabbat. We don't get involved in business, we unplug. One of the things we also don't do, which is a little bit difficult to understand, but that's the rules, is that we can't carry things in a place that's considered excessively public. Now, by excessively public, actually it means something like Times Square or the Beltway. You can carry in places that are private, so inside your house, in your backyard. And then there's the middle area, which Fairfax County would fall into. It's not as busy as Times Square. It's more busy than your house or backyard is. So what the rabbis said is they said, you know what, if you make it resemble more of what like your backyard would look like, then we'll let you carry there. So construction, so what does a fenced-in backyard look like? You have fences and you have gates or doorways. And the rabbi said, if you can build something that can mimic fences and doorways, you can call that a single area you can carry in it. And that's how most Eruvim, which is the Hebrew plural for Eruv, that's how most Eruvim are built. They're built using walls, and we have 2 miles of our Eruv is the sound wall of the Beltway, and things that mimic doorways. So how do we do that? We do that with 2 telephone poles and a wire that goes across. It resembles a doorway, and you can use that. And that's basically how we constructed our Eruv. So what's so important about carrying? Well, the obvious thing is that, for example, if you're going to a neighbor, you want to share a meal, you can bring food over, that's a great thing. But much more importantly is our families that have little kids and babies that can't walk. So those families can't get out on Shabbos. On their holiest day of the year, they're tied to their house, or at least one of the parents is tied to the house, minding the kid because you can't carry the kid anywhere. You can't use a stroller. So that introduction is really to give you a taste of just how important it is for a community to have an Eruv. We've had families that have not moved into the community because there's no Eruv. We've had families that got married, moved to the community, had babies, and they left because we don't have an Eruv. In fact, Rabbi Beto, the assistant rabbi here, during her interview, she asked, does this place have an Eruv here? And Rabbi Kalender was able to proudly say, yes, we do, actually. So it's a big, so to paraphrase then Vice President Joe Biden, it's a big deal. All right. So, let's see, where are we at? So now we want to get to some of the thank yous part, the part where, so that's how it makes a village. Now I'm going to talk about how it takes a village. So this is interesting. The board said, can you keep it to like 10 minutes or so? And then every board member gave me a couple people that I needed to thank. So I'm here to tell the board, no, I can't thank 47 people in 10 minutes, but I'll do my best. All right, so here we go, strap on. One other technical thing about an Eruv, in order to make it more like, say, somebody's backyard or a private domain, is that one person should own it, or one community should own it. Obviously, in Fairfax County, you have a gazillion owners of their own property. So what the rabbi said we could do is go to a controlling authority and rent the area for the sake of Jewish practice. It's called Sechiras Reshus. So the first batch of thank yous go to people that sold us Fairfax County and Fairfax City, so to speak. Not literally, don't worry. But I want to thank Fairfax City Mayor David Meyer, Fairfax Sheriff Stacy Kincaid, and Fairfax County Providence District Supervisor Dolly Palchik, who were all very willing and happy to go through that procedure and rent to us Fairfax County and Fairfax City. So thank you to them. Next on the list is the Pozes Jewish Community Center. When we started working on this project 2 years ago, we wanted to apply for a grant for the Jewish Federation. And part of the rules and regulations, the Federation said, well, okay, we give grants to 501c3 corporations. So we were in the process of applying for that, and the grant deadline was coming, and we went to Federation and said, we're not gonna have it, what should we do? And they said, try to find a partner organization, and we can sort of work it through them. So we're thinking, all right, so maybe let's call the JCC. So we called them up and we started asking them, and Jeff Danik, who's the director, is like, I couldn't even finish the question before he was saying, yes, we'll do it. We'd love to be involved. We'd love to be involved. And if you think about it, I mean, the whole thing doesn't even get off the ground without that. So I want to add, the JCC, it's more than just putting their name on. Then they also have to be involved in accounting and the money flow and this and that. And they're doing all that just to help us out and just to help establish an Eruv in this community. So I want to thank the Pozes JCC and Jeff Danik, the director of the JCC. I also want to thank the other local partners that partnered in with us. That some of them we used a lot, some of them we used a little, but there are partners we can call on to help certain things. And they including publicity, which is important. They include Gesher Jewish Day School, George Mason Hillel, George Mason Chabad, and George Mason's AE Pi chapter. And there are 2 more partners. We'll get to them in a minute. The city of Fairfax. This includes Mayor Meyer and members of the City Council of Fairfax and the Department of Public Works and all the other staff that came together and helped us. Fairfax, you know, when you live in I've never lived in like one of those gated community things where, like, you know, they regulate even the height of the bushes and stuff like that. Well, Fairfax City isn't exactly like that, but it's sort of like that from an outsider's point of view. They keep a tight control over public spaces there. So we needed to make adjustments to the telephone poles, to the utility poles. We needed a permit for every little thing we did. You want to put a piece of plastic on a pole, you got to go through this permit process. It was kind of onerous, and they were even apologizing that it was so onerous, but they said, look, this is what you got to do. And they helped us a lot with that, you know, including, you know, people at the Department of Public Works. It was fantastic how much they helped us with the process, because they, like every organization we approached, they wanted us to succeed. So they helped us, and then it came time to vote on the permit. And frankly, I think this is hilarious. What happened was the vote took 30 minutes. And the reason why it took 30 minutes is because every council member had to get on record saying that they supported us, that they support diversity, and they welcome us, and it was just unbelievable. And after 30 minutes of debate, they passed it 6-0. So thank you to the City of Fairfax and the City Council. Fairfax County, our Eruv encompasses, as you gather by now, both Fairfax County and part of the City of Fairfax. The members of the Board of Supervisors were so helpful in guiding us, to the right places. As I mentioned, Supervisor Palchik was, involved in this Sehiris Rishus procedure, and then she arranged for us to meet with every other supervisor whose jurisdiction we cross into. I see Supervisor Gross is here. I'm not sure who else is here. I'm sorry? There you go. I'm not good at hearing. What was the name?
James Walkinshaw.
James Walkinshaw is another Fairfax County Supervisor. And, I'm going to be repetitive because I have a mic. Everyone said if there's anything we can do to help, please don't hesitate to ask, including Ms. Gross and Mr. Walkinshaw. Unbelievable. You should also know that while we've been basking and living with an Eruv for the last 10 weeks now, we've also been working on what we call Eruv 2.0, and that would be to include the Fairfax Hospital Center within the Eruv, so that we can walk to the hospital and bring things to patients on Shabbat, which we couldn't do before. We still can't do, but we're hoping to expand into that, and so I need to give special thanks to the Northern Virginia Mental Health Institute and the Innova Health System. Again, they've been, we wanted to attach a wire to the side of the building of the hospital. And they said, okay, we can do that. This is everybody's been so helpful. Sorry if it's a boring theme, but it still amazes me. So thank you to the hospital and to the Mental Health Institute there. And God willing, within a month or two maybe, you should never say dates, I'm going to say it anyway, within a month or two maybe we'll be expanded into the hospital also. So thank you to them. All right, now we get to the heavy hitters here. Dominion Energy and Verizon. We use over 500 poles in our Eruv, which has a perimeter of 19.5 miles. And all the poles, as you can imagine, are owned by either Dominion or Verizon. I'm going to say something that sounds silly, but there's a good reason for it. It's actually hard to determine who owns which pole. So you're going to think, a bunch of bureaucrats, they don't know what they're doing. No, it's a good reason. The reason is that they have, for our benefit, they have mutual agreements. If a pole goes down, the other company can put one up real fast, they'll do that. And that's for our benefit. The problem is that then it's got two serial numbers on it, one from Verizon and one from Dominion. So actually, applying for a permit for all those poles was actually pretty complicated because they had to examine every single pole and make sure they knew who the owner was so that we could do the permit. And that took a long time. It just took a long time. And then of course, the guy working on it, retired in the middle. But they spent an awful lot of hours for that. And so I really want to salute Dominion and Verizon for being 100% cooperative with us. Because obviously without the poles, there's no way we couldn't even think about an Eruv without the poles. So thank you very much to them. All right, VDOT and the Federal Highway Administration. Oh my goodness. As you can imagine, there are a lot of restrictions if you want to construct something, erect something like right next to a highway, right? That makes sense. And part of the Eruv goes by where Little River Turnpike meets the Beltway. So what do we have there? We've got Fairfax Parks Authority there. We have VDOT having jurisdiction there, and the Federal Highway Administration has jurisdiction there too, because we're close to the Beltway. So that is really complicated to work out, and the amount of hours that they spent trying to make it work. I mean, it was a given. Again, sorry to bore you. It was of course we'll try to make it work, but it was really hard, and they spent a lot of hours. And they had these maps where, like, you know, within zone 1, there's like these regulations. Within zone 2, there's these regulations. In zone 3 here, and overlapping with the feds and the, you know. I'm pretty good with maps, but I was like totally lost. I did not know what they were talking about, but I trusted in the process, and Elliot knew what they were talking about. So, I need to say 2 incidents about them. So one of them is the following. They needed to have a meeting between VDOT and the feds. So they used one of those, calendar software things where, you know, you type in that you want a meeting, and you ask the software, when's the next time everybody's free so you can have the meeting, right? Everybody has that in the office, right? So, so up pops, 2 p.m. on July 2nd. So that's when they had a meeting. They had a big meeting on 2 p.m. July 2nd. And I want you to think about that. This is the Friday afternoon, right before July 4th weekend. At 2 in the afternoon. I mean, who works then? Of course. For us mortals, and there they were. They had this rather large meeting of VDOT and the feds and Elliot. I couldn't even make that meeting, actually. That's just indicative of their buy-in. And here's something that's even more indicative of their buy-in. We had a whole bunch of meetings with VDOT trying to get this to work. And you know that the agencies are really tuned into what you're doing when they can make a suggestion about the Eruv that's even better than something we thought of. Now, we're sort of the experts on this. We've been working at this a long time. But they came up with an idea that was even better than what we had. In fact, I'll explain what it is, if you don't mind a 30-second diversion, because I think this is so cool. So, before I said that you can have a doorway with 2 poles and a wire that goes over the top, right? Simple. It turns out that if you have a pole that's tall enough, 40 inches, you can actually draw an imaginary line from the pole all the way up to the first thing it hits. And that's good enough. So, again, it's that same area of Little River Turnpike and the Beltway. There are some overhead power lines that are really high up, and they're not attached to any telephone poles. We can't use the towers there. So we need to somehow connect like a virtual doorway to that. So Elliot's idea was to, and this is a standard idea, lots of Eruv construction people do this. You put a piece of plywood in the ground, you paint it brown so it's nondescript, make sure it's 40 inches high, and have it make sure it's exactly lined up under the line, and then that works. So that's what we approached them about, could we do this? And one of them said, would a highway sign work? And when Elliot and I were like, yeah, that would work. What a great idea. And then they said, yeah, we'll put a sign in that says, caution, overhead power lines. I'm like, that is brilliant. It's like, and they could argue, look, we all benefit, because now it's an extra safety thing we have. It's like, wow. So I'll just say this, again, I hope I don't get choked up here. I worked for the government for 30 years, and I know what it's like to be called a faceless bureaucrat. But I'm here to tell you that, that these bureaucrats made it work for us. So I want them to, anybody from VDOT who's here, I'd like you to stand up so we can publicly applaud you. Who here is from VDOT? Down the home stretch now. Finally, at least for my part, almost finally, I want to thank the congregations of Chabad of Northern Virginia and Congregation Olam Tikva. Applause to them. It's always an absolutely wonderful thing when congregations from different denominations can work together on a joint project to the benefit of everybody. That's exactly what we did. Congregants from both congregations chipped in and helped and did all kinds of stuff, helping us with permits, helping us with fundraising and installation and legal help, and you name it. I need to shout out a couple specific names. Jamie Frame is a college student who does our website and the email messages. Thank you, Jamie. Kirby Newman, whose team at Fast Signs of Alexandria put up the posters there. I understand that was like half of $1,000 of work or something like that. Rochelle Goldberg, who helped with all the setup. And all the other people that showed up early today to set it up. Thank you very much. This Eruv is for you, it's for us, and may we go from strength to strength. So while I'm talking about the two congregations, I should mention that, of course, part of the reason why we got so strong support from the congregations is because we got so strong support from the rabbis there. We are totally indebted to the two rabbis involved. And I'd like to we're now going to have a couple speakers, a speaker part of our program. So I'd like to start off with introducing Rabbi David Kalender, who's the rabbi of the congregation in the City Room. And he was totally on board right from the start, helping us with key visibility, an important stamp of approval, and to say again, without his help, we wouldn't be here. So thank you very much, Rabbi Kalender.
I'd like to repeat everything that Sholom just said, if that's okay with you. I think the rest of us are really extraneous to this because you touched on so many powerful and transformative elements that are out there. So I'm just going to speak very quickly because I know there's so many people who have so many wise and important things to share in addition to that beautiful frame that you gave us. First of all, just for this one very particular space in which we are all in right now, it is truly an honor on behalf of myself, of Rabbi Beto, of Alan Gorwitz, president of our board of directors, and our entire community that's part of this, to simply be a place for gathering, a place for coming together for things that matter in our lives. And that's part of our mission as a community, not just Jewish ritual things, but understanding that Judaism and Jewish ritual is about being a comfortable, safe, welcoming, caring, and loving space. And so it is truly our honor to host it today. Rabbi Deitsch and I spoke beforehand, and I'm not going to go into detail about simply the wonderful relationship that there exists in the Jewish community that is here in this area, not just as institutions, but as people who gather together for things that matter. And just as always, a pleasure to work with you on that. The last thing I will say then is that for some of you, an Eruv that's part of your regular faith life. For some of us, that's an important part. 1 out of every 7 days, whether there's an Eruv or not matters. For some of you, your first answer was, what? As well as your 4th or 5th or 10th time, because it's a little bit of a goofy concept when you think about it for a moment. But I want to just think about it in the word that we often use for it. There's Hebrew words for it, of a reshut, of a domain, but really it's about a boundary. And I think that in our world today, whether we're looking in our personal situations or even in our national situations, that the word boundary is about saying what's on the outside. What do I want to keep out? What is not like me? And the experience of creating an Eruv here in this area of Northern Virginia has been just the opposite. It's been a boundary about saying who's inside, who is within this community, not the Jewish community, not the Mantua community, not the Providence, the Northern Virginia, the city of Fairfax, wherever you draw those jurisdictional lines, but it's about who wants to be together, who wants to be sharing what life has to offer. And so that is what I'm here to celebrate the most today, is the idea that we have a boundary that helps us all realize whether we're coming at it from an agency, a government place, a Jewish place, that we're all inside this together. Thank you all for being part of this incredibly sacred endeavor, sacred in every way that we can mean those words.
Thank you, Rabbi Kalender, for those wonderful words. Thank you. I was supposed to get some signals, and of course I wasn't paying attention. Fairfax County Supervisor Dalia Palchik, I don't know if she's here, or if her...
She couldn't make it today, but I have a couple of words I want to share from her.
Okay, but before you get, I want to, let me introduce her, or her assistant, to say that she was very excited to be the first person to, in a sense, rent the area to us. She was very excited about this project. And so I want to introduce, the last name may seem familiar if you haven't met him before. I want to introduce the Community Outreach Director for her, Aria Kalender.
I appreciate it, Rob Simon, and it's exciting to see everyone here. I am, as Rob Simon noted, Aria Kalender. It is wonderful to be in a pretty familiar space, both for myself and for Supervisor Palchik, who was so thrilled to see this gathering here today. She is not able to make it today, unfortunately, but she did want me to just pass along a couple of words for her. As was noted, she's so excited to have this moment be one that she was able to participate in, and to have this moment here at Olam Tikvah, where we really appreciate the hosting by Rabbi Kalender and Rabbi Bedo. So thank you so much for having us all in this space. The Eruv is an incredibly unique process, and one that is for many of us familiar as a concept. And one thing Supervisor Palchik and I talked about is, we know what an Eruv is, but there was so much more to it. And the amount of hours sitting with the incredible help of the Eruv team, going over, understanding how the lechis worked, what needed to go where, was an incredible learning experience. And if that isn't just about the most Jewish way to approach this, I don't know what is. It was really, really wonderful. And that opportunity to both bring this political and religious leadership together for this experience, one where we say, okay, let's come together to help build this community, was one that's so strongly a part of Supervisor Palchik's self-interest and a place that she intensely identifies with. So thank you to everyone who has been so helpful. The establishment of the Eruv in Fairfax County is a landmark moment for the Jewish community. I am sure just about every person in this room knows about Federation's 2018 study where we conquered Maryland in amount of people, and we're very proud, and frankly this is a good capstone to that moment, where we get to say, we also deserve these types of things. We are like these other wonderful communities all over Virginia, like Richmond, like Norfolk, all over the entirety of the DMV. And frankly, it's just exciting to say, okay, now we're here, we've grown into this moment, and we are ready to utilize these things to the maximum we can. So it's this really beautiful moment for the Jewish community and for the Fairfax community as a whole. To be able to say we can now visit parks, our synagogues that are within the bounds of the Eruvs, and as was mentioned, the incredibly Jewish values of inclusion, of visiting the sick, of Bikur Cholim, being able to say we're going to go and deliver things to Inova Hospital soon, that is something that can't be taken for granted in the way we interact with our community and make us all feel at home. So not only is that so wonderful, but it's also exciting because, as I'm sure you've heard from so many, and as we look forward to this Eruv is the beginning. It is not the end, it is not the cap, it is not the finishing off of any moments, but it is the beginning of Jewish community growth here in Northern Virginia. We want to say thank you to the entire Eruv team, in particular those of who met with us at length. I think Elliot Goldberg and I have exchanged about as many emails as me with anyone else over the past couple of months, learning the intricacies. And an enormous thank you to all the county staff, to Dominion, to Verizon, to the many others who made this a possibility. I do want to give one shout out in particular to Leo Ratchford, the county's light pole guru, who has spent hours on trying to finish up these last parts of Eruv 2.0, and we're very excited that we'll be able to attach all those things together. This has been an incredible moment and an incredibly exciting time for our Jewish community. In that honor, and I am not going to read the whole thing, but I do have a letter from Supervisor Palchik and the Providence District Office thanking the Eruv team for their hard work on the letter, and to the entire Jewish community of Northern Virginia for the incredible work they've done on beginning to build this incredible community that we will be able to not only go to, but walk to and bring things to any day of the week. It is exciting, and it is truly indicative of how far we've come. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Aria, nice words. All right, okay. We wanted to thank in person Mayor David Meyer of the city of Fairfax. He also couldn't be here, but he sent a very short message he asked me to read. I should point out, is it okay to point out personal stuff? I don't know. He is a religious person, although he's not Jewish, and it's reflected in his message, so I want to read his message. If I can find which pocket I have my readers in. There we go. Greetings to all the congregants in the partner synagogues of the now completed Eruv. To send my congratulations on this significant accomplishment. So many individuals have worked many hours over a long time to make this a reality. The countless days of collaborating with local governments, property owners, utility companies, and with families from different congregations will now enable everyone to celebrate the Jewish Sabbath with a fully functioning Eruv. Being observant is important. The personal discipline and care taken to be faithful can give every believer a richer life and a deeper faith with ever greater meaning. It is my hope that this Eruv will also bring new families to the area and create an even wider and ever welcoming Jewish community. To the Eruv committee in particular, thank you for inviting me to be a partner with you in this journey. The city shares your joy and supports you always in every way. Next, I want to talk about a woman in the State House of Delegates whose district is smack dab in the middle of our Eruv. In 2010, she won her first election by 37 votes. If that's not a message to get out and vote during election time, I don't know what it is. She's won all her elections since then, and 2 years ago, she became the first woman and the first Jew to become the Speaker of the House. Of course, I'm referring to Speaker Eileen Fillerkorn. As we did with all the politicians in the area, we briefed her, mostly as a courtesy, to explain what was going on in the district. And I happened to be doing that briefing. And when we had the standard PowerPoint slide, and when I got to the point of explaining what an Eruv was, she said, you know, you can skip that part. I lived in Israel for a year. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. Unfortunately, she is actually working today in Richmond right now. However, and this is amazing to me. So her constituent outreach director, Tyler Giovanillo, raced here from Richmond. He left at 1:30 through, apparently there's some sort of ice storm or something, and he just arrived 5 minutes ago to deliver some remarks on her behalf. Did I get that right? Okay, good. Come on up, Tyler. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening, good afternoon. So I have a brief message from the speaker. She sends her warmest regards and gratitude for everyone for coming together today. So she writes, "To the members of the Fairfax Eruv community, I'm so sorry I cannot be there with you all to celebrate this momentous occasion, but I am honored that Tyler is able to share my words with you today. As you all know, an Eruv functions to bring family, friends, and neighbors together on the Sabbath to facilitate meaningful connections. But in the process of establishing our Fairfax Eruv, we have all come together as a community as well. Today, we have government officials, Jewish community leaders, utility representatives, and others who have helped get our Eruv up and running, a collective that may not have otherwise overlapped, all working together to build our Fairfax community into something greater. I want to thank you all for your efforts to make our community's Eruv a reality. I think you all know as much as I do, I think you all know just how much time and energy it has taken to get off the ground. But without some key figures, this event celebrating the Fairfax Eruv would not have been possible. Thank you to Elliot Goldberg, with whom I have worked closely over the last few years to arrange meetings, coordinate with all the relevant parties, and ensure that every box is checked to make this a reality. I also want to thank each of the members of the Fairfax Eruv Committee who were at the helm of this project and played key roles in the establishment of our Eruv. It was your vision and follow-through that brought us to this day. Finally, I would like to thank the Chabad Lubavitch of Northern Virginia, and especially the rabbis, for your time, effort, and dedication to this project. I look forward to seeing and taking part in all the community building and new connections that the Fairfax Eruv brings to our neighborhood. Thank you all once again. We could not have done this without you.
Thank you, Tyler. He didn't say it, but I think Aria said it about how he and Elliot, Aria, Kalender, and Elliot had exchanged a gazillion emails. That's also true between Tyler and Elliot, have exchanged a gazillion emails and phone calls getting stuff done. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're coming down the home stretch. For the last government official, I have the honor of introducing Congressman Gerry Connolly, who represents Virginia's 11th District, obviously, which includes the entire area covered by the Eruv in the U.S. House of Representatives. He has been an incredible friend to the Jewish community. Whenever Rabbi Deitsch or Rabbi Kalender call him because they need something done, he is always responsive, he's always there. And it's been that way since 1995 when he first got elected to the Fairfax County Supervisors, then he became the chair of the supervisors, and then finally in 2008 he was elected to Congress where he has since served. He's a fixture at many of our events because he's always supporting everything we ask him to do. He's willing to chip in. So with that, I'd like to introduce the Honorable Gerry Connolly.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be with you, and if you look at your map on the back of the program, you'll see a word in black print, Mantua. Mantua is my neighborhood, and it's entirely encompassed in this area. And that's a wonderful feeling. And I have to tell you, Rabbi, when you describe what an Eruv is, I want one in Congress. You know, a place that's safe to walk around and introduce bills and get them passed, where civility will reign, where we can carry each other's burdens joyfully, a safe zone. But you know, the biggest takeaway I have, and I hope you'll have when we finish our celebration today, is that we live in a community at every level that wants to be supportive. That the minute you say, well, we need this and we want this, the reaction isn't, well, we're not going to do that. Or that's not our tradition. Or why would you even want to do that here? It is, how can we help? How can we make this happen? How can we contribute ideas that facilitate it? Because you want it. And if it matters to you, it matters to me. That's the community we live in. And that's a model for America. If you watch cable news, you'd think we're all at each other's throats. And stories like this get washed away. The building blocks of a community don't start at the national level, they start at this level, with things like an Eruv. There weren't any protests. There weren't people saying, well, that's not my tradition. For most people in this community, they haven't got a clue what an Eruv is, and they never will. But that didn't matter, because it mattered to you. And we were going to be one community. We celebrate our different faiths and cultures and religious expressions, and we respect them. And that is the lesson I drew from your remarks, Rabbi, that, wow, once again, this community came together and made something happen for a sub-community in the community. And I hope when we sometimes see expressions of hate, incivility, intolerance, we'll remember that's not who we are as a community. And those voices can't drown out what we're celebrating today, which I pray and hope will be a microcosm for America tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, so I'm a little bit starstruck. I think it's really cool that a congressman can come and give us inspiring words about an Eruv. That's just awesome. Thank you. Two more speakers within the Jewish community I want to, and then we're almost done. Gil Preuss is the CEO of Jewish Federation of Greater Washington. REA Kalender alluded to it a little bit. So around here for decades, we all know that the center of Jewish life is in suburban Maryland, and that's the way it is, and that's the way it's always going to be. And then the Jewish population survey from a couple years ago came out, and lo and behold, they discovered that more Jews lived in Northern Virginia than in suburban Maryland. And everybody was like, whoa, how could that be? But Federation had a different reaction. They had a reaction that every federation, I have no idea if other federations do this, but they had what I thought was the perfect reaction, which is, whoa, if more Jews lived in Northern Virginia than suburban Maryland, and suburban Maryland has an active and thriving Jewish life, then we need to get to work. And we need to set up a Northern Virginia task force, and we need to give grants. Like how, I don't even know if this is a word, how foresightful that is. It's perfect. That's perfect. That's what you want a federation to do. And so they did, and we applied for a grant. It's public knowledge, right? $35,000 they gave us, and by the time we finished with the hospital expansion, we will have spent it all. And we are both humbled by the fact that you entrusted us with such a large grant, and we are thrilled to say that this is one project that you funded that came to fruition. So I'd like to invite the CEO, Gil Preuss. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi Simon. Thank you, Rabbi Deitsch, Rabbi Kalender, and everyone here. It's really, it was wonderful for Federation to play a part in supporting this important endeavor. I did not know that the idea started 15, 20 years ago. Probably should have been funded 15, 20 years ago, so maybe we're a little late and not that foresightful, but at least during our time, our ability to partner with so many incredible leaders in the Northern Virginia Jewish community is really an honor. And there are many of you here today. I do want to thank the Eruv committee. It is your work and leadership that made it happen. Elliot, I don't know what your next project is, but we'll talk. I'm sure there's something else that you can lead and transform in a similar way. I found it ironic that if you look in the book, the grant that was received was called the Foundational Innovation Grant. So how ironic that the Eruv was funded through an innovation grant, as opposed to a traditional grant, a historic grant, a creating foundational. I guess makes sense. The innovation part is a little pushing it. At the same time, Federation has been funding a series of other projects in Northern Virginia because this is a thriving Jewish community. This is a community with over 100,000 Jews who are coming together and building a vibrant Jewish life. And so our ability to partner with you in every way possible is a true honor, and to really be part of all the efforts that people have undertaken to continue and grow this community. And so while the community study from 2017 might have validated a number, it did not build the Jewish community. That is what you've done, and that's what everyone here has done. And so as we go forward, and as we think about what we can do, I expect that there'll be many more initiatives along the lines of the Eruv, whether it's partnering with the Preuss JCC, with Gesher, with the Hillels, with the synagogues, with all the other thriving institutions that make up this community. So I just want to thank everyone here. I want to thank the leadership that made this happen, and to really see it as one part of this incredible community that you have built, and then I know that's going to get stronger and stronger over the years. So thank you for enabling us to be part of this.
We need a shout out to Rabbi Chaim Jachter of Teaneck, New Jersey, who actually is our supervising rabbi. He supervises a number of Eruvs around the country. He's the author of books and articles. He's a nationally known expert. He sent a quick message. It's just a couple sentences. I'll read it very quickly. I wish to congratulate the Fairfax Jewish community for an outstanding job of creating the new community Eruv. The entire process was done very efficiently and effectively. I view the job as a model for other communities, and have already referred other communities to yours to learn from your intelligence and discipline. May Hashem continue to bless your community, and may it continue to grow and flourish in your lives as Jews. I'll mention one other thing about him afterwards. So he was our supervising rabbi from long distance, and he's made a couple of trips checking out every square inch. We also need a rabbi here on the ground, and the rabbi that did that was the rabbi of the other partnering congregation, Rabbi Sholom Deitsch, who has also been a supporter right from the start and has given us invaluable help. So I'd like to
Relax, everyone. I only have a 15-minute speech right now. We spoke a lot about the requirements. We spoke a lot about the technicality of what an Eruv is. I would like to share with you for a moment, looking a little at the words of what the Eruv actually means, a little deeper meaning. There's a beautiful medrash. The medrash says that what every mitzvah, every commandment that God gives us to do, God does it alone. And the question is, how does God do Eruv? Eruv is, by definition, it's about boundaries, it's about spaces, making from a public space, a private space. As if any of us have any belief in God, it's that God is not limited by space. So what is that Eruv? How does God observe Eruv? So on a spiritual level, what an Eruv does, takes a public space and makes it a private space. In the Hebrew, it's Reshut HaRabim, makes the Reshut HaRabim a public space to a Reshut HaYachid, a private space. And for us, when we look at what we're doing a little spiritual, on a spiritual level, what the Eruv represents, it's actually about making a public, people disparate, people fragmented, people disconnected, and bringing them all together, making us all united on such a different level than it was before. The reality of the Eruv is that we are now in a different reality. It's a whole different dimension of what this is. And this happened, this unity happened as it came about through an unbelievable committee, an Eruv committee. Elliot calls me up 8 o'clock at night, you know, as if saying hello, but there's always something over there that Elliot's asking for. I've been in touch with many Eruv rabbis around the country, and they're super impressed about the efficiency and how the Eruv came about in this community. So I give kudos to Elliot, I give kudos to Rabbi Simon and the whole Eruv community. Yasher koyach to you. I want to also point out to you, for those of you who are familiar a little with the Hebrew spelling of the Eruv, Ayin Yud Resh Vav Beis, Eruv. Sometimes you can look at the word and you see what other words are related to it and understand on a deeper level what's the meaning of that word. We have a famous saying in Judaism. It says, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Lazeh. All the Jewish people are responsible for each other. The Eruv creates that responsibility, not only in the Jewish community, but I would say so beautifully demonstrated by all the local governments who are able to create and help the Jewish people be more observant in their own religion. And so I want to thank all the officials who are here, all the government and the Minyan, etc., who were able to help us do this. There's also another word that's connected to the word Eruv, and that is Ivri. Ivri. Ivri is the word for a Jew, because the Ivri he's Me'aver Layam, he's on the other side of the Jordan River. And that's what they refer to the Jewish people, from the other side. In effect, the Ivri is a bridge creating a connection between both sides. And that's the function of this Eruv, to make a connection for all the people who live not only within the Eruv, but all over as well, through the whole Northern Virginia. So mazel tov to everybody, and we'll continue to enjoy it.
Thank you, Rabbi Deitsch. You know, we're really coming down the home stretch, and I want to thank the organizers. I'd like to call up Shauna Wallace and Beth Frame, who organized this event. We're actually going to make a little, I'm not sure what all they're doing, but one of the things they're doing is they're going to present a little presentation to Elliot Goldberg. So, Elliot, if you're tired of this might be the last time, but I got to do it once more, sorry. So, have with me here the Fairfax Eruv Committee Haggadah. And there's something we do at the Passover Seder. It's part of our ceremony. It's about half a page long, and it's called Dayenu. Dayenu is a Hebrew word which, in its context, literally means it would have been enough for us, and then unsaid, it means to thank Him. And basically, you know, we're thanking God for all the things He did for us, He or she did for us in the desert, and each one of those things would have been enough for us to thank Him. So those of us on the Fairfax Eruv Committee might be the only people who really understand just how hard Elliot worked on this committee, other than his wife Tracy. And I think the best way to describe it actually is as follows. I mentioned that the Eruv from initial idea, you know, this second time around until fruition was almost 2 years. Apparently that's really fast. I mean, it seems slow to us, but apparently that's really fast. And I once asked Rabbi Jactor, there's another community that, you know, I'm familiar with, and I know that they've been working on an Eruv for many, many years. And I asked him, why didn't they have an Eruv yet? And he answered with just 5 words. He said, and I'm quoting him directly, he said, they don't have an Elliot. And I think that just encapsulates really like how important Elliot is to us and and our committee, and you know, and to the Eruv. So I want to do a little Diana thing. So the way we do it at my table, probably most Seder night tables, is, you know, I'll say the line, and then I'll point to you, and you say Diana. All right? Had he kickstart the current Eruv effort and not connected us with the Federation grant? Had he connected us with the Federation grant and not mapped out the entire 19.5-mile perimeter route? Had he mapped out the entire 19.5 perimeter route and not worked closely with Dominion, Verizon, VDOT, Fairfax City, et cetera, to get licenses and permissions? Had he worked closely with all those agencies and not overseen the actual installation of the entire Eruv? Had he overseen the installation of the entire Eruv and not created a 100+ page manual and personally trained every one of our weekly Eruv inspectors and drivers? For this and so much more, we thank and praise Elliot for all of his work on the Eruv. So I'd like to call up Elliot.
But I know Diana, everybody's hungry and wants to get to cake. So, but I will say, when Sean and I were tasked with what can we give Elliot as a thank you, we talked to his wife a little bit. What do we know about Elliot? We know he enjoys a good scotch. But what we know about him also is that he made Shabbos so much more, so much more significant to so many of us, and so much easier for so many of us. I know Sholom spoke at the beginning about having, you know, being able to push your baby carriage. Well, some of us are in the position where our parents are getting older. And for me personally, you know, that my father can now come to shul in a wheelchair and be able to come and celebrate Shabbos with me and Yontif with me, that's very powerful. So thank you to Elliot, and we're also going to pick the rest of the committee in a minute. But Elliot, you brought in you made Shabbos so special for us. We got you a little something to make Shabbos, when Shabbos leaves, it should still be special to you. So it's Havdalah stuff for you and your family with a little bit of booze. So and something special to keep it in. So Elliot, thank you for all your hard work from Sean and I, in planning the event, we got to go on a couple of the Eruv Committee's Zoom meetings. They're really fascinating. And and one of the things they talked about recently, and they didn't know this at the time, that Sean and I decided when we were going to do the event that one thing we really wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that the committee knew that they were really thanked and that what they had done was so important. And what better way to do that than with some Eruv swag, which they did not know this at the time, but at the meeting later on, they started making fun of the thought, who would ever think to have Eruv swag? Well, you guys are getting Eruv swag. So we have some wine glasses for our phenomenal, for Elliot and all of our phenomenal Eruv committee. We're going to call them up. We do have one extra bag so I'll call them up and we'll have. We have Rabbi Sholom Simon, who's our director, please come get some Eruv swag, and thank you from everybody for all that you've done for the community. To our treasurer, Michael Frame. Thank you for all that you've done for the community. And while I will say having gotten to go and listen to the Zooms, even when I wasn't always meant to because Mike was in the nearby room, I will say if anybody's looking for a really wonderful thing to get involved with, the Eruv committee is looking for some fresh blood. I mean, some really excited, enthusiastic volunteers. We'll get you swag. So please think about joining up and being part of the Eruv committee because they are looking for some people to help out as it goes forward. So thank you to our treasurer, Michael Frame. Thank you to our secretary, Mandy Book. Mandy, I think she was sort of the impetus of getting a lot of the people onto the Fairfax Eruv committee to begin with. I know she got Michael and some of our others. So we thank you, Mandy. Enjoy your swag. And who else may I have? Steve Lamar, who is not here today, our vice president, but we thank him. And also we have our website, and this is just a plug for the Fairfax Eruv. If you want, go to fairfaxeruv.org. You can sign up. This is awesome. I get them. You can sign up every week for weekly alerts. You'll get them sent to your text phone. It'll tell you that the Eruv is up, but it'll also tell you what time Shabbos is and what the Parsha is. So it's a great little thing to get to your phone. You can also get it sent to your email. Is that right? You can also get it sent to your email. So please check out the fairfaxeruv.org. And we just want to thank Jamie Frame for building and running our website for us. So thank you so much. I'm going to let Rabbi Simon close us out, and thank you again from Sean and I and from everybody else to the board of the Fairfax Eruv. Thank you for all your hard work and tireless efforts on our behalf. Thank you.
Last thing I want to say is, from my heart, thank you so much for coming and honoring us with your presence. L'chaim, let's go eat.